Hello from the Bringing Up Business podcast, where we talk about business and parenting. I am your host, Kayla Sachet, mom of a very rambunctious toddler. I'm also the owner of a creative and marketing agency called Umari Digital that specializes in branding, websites, marketing campaigns, and more. Today's guest, Aaron Stash, has a business that is turning up the heat on sustainability efforts, and he is also sharing his parenting wisdom with us today. Aaron is the founder and chief electrification officer of the Electric Home Company, empowering homeowners to create healthy, efficient, and sustainable living spaces through education, technology, and a supportive network of industry professionals. When the opportunity to design and build a new home became apparent to him, he did so sustainably, moving into the first LEED Platinum certified home in his community, where he has lived for over 10 years. Now, as founder of the Electric Home Company, he shares the benefits of home electrification as host of the Electric Home Show on YouTube. Aaron, I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thanks. Great to be here. I like that, turning up the heat on home sustainability.
I'm glad you caught that. That was I'm trying to be punny today, gotta keep it
I love
fun.
it.
So let's dive into your story. Tell us about your parenting and business journey and when they crossed paths.
Yeah, I have a graduated 8th grader. So now I have 2 high schoolers. My son will be a freshman, and my daughter will be a junior. So not quite the toddlers, but they're still running around like crazy. And yeah, so I spent the better part of my early career in corporate sustainability and recently moved into entrepreneurship. Such an exciting and new experience.
Yeah.
And, I think all through this time being a parent was really, a challenge, right? I think that's what we're all facing, is how do we balance that back and forth?
Yeah.
And I think the greatest thing I've seen so far as an entrepreneur is the ability to be a greater part of my kids' school experience.
Yeah.
So, in corporate America, I wasn't really able to go to those field trips and doing things like that. And, I was excited to go on my son's French field trip to the Art Institute of Chicago. I was excited to go to my daughter's high school for their entrepreneurial class. And it really wasn't something that maybe I didn't think about when I was in corporate America, or definitely didn't have the time for, or didn't make the time for. So, it's a great opportunity to have that time and that flexibility.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so wait, your daughter is taking an entrepreneurial class in high school?
Yeah, their high school is a little crazy. So she actually wasn't in the class, but it's essentially, if Shark Tank was a high school class, that's what this is. Didn't really have that when I was growing up in a small town.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in suburban Chicago, and I feel like they have every opportunity possible in this high school, which is great.
Oh my goodness, that is so cool. I didn't even know something like that was possible. I went to a public school in the suburbs of LA, and I feel like my academics were very specific to just like, getting ready for college, right? The basics, the math, the science, the history, the English, the usual. I was lucky enough to take some art classes, and that's what ended up helping me in my journey and in discovering my passion for graphic design and all of the tertiary goodies that I get to be a part of.
Right.
But man, I feel like an entrepreneurship class would have been huge. How is your daughter taking to that? I'm so curious.
I mean, it was a fascinating session. So essentially each of the student groups presented their ideas and different business plans that they'd put together. And then we as entrepreneurs shared what we were doing and kind of back and forth. But the level of detail and engagement that the students shared, was fascinating. I was not thinking about that as a junior, sophomore, senior in high school at all. They're already hitting the ground running. But yeah, speaking of art, as the doting dad here, I will point out the art behind me is my daughter's. So she is the artist of the family as well. So big fan there.
Oh my goodness. She has a bright future ahead with art, with the entrepreneurship. I'm so excited for her. So it sounds like you were a dad before you started your business. When did you decide to start the Electric Home Company?
Yeah, so the Electric Home Company is relatively new. We've been around for less than a year in the Chicagoland area, helping people break up with the gas company. How
Yeah.
can we, remove fossil fuels from our home to be healthier, safer, more comfortable, and ultimately more environmentally friendly? And I look at things like HVAC equipment, hot water heaters, induction cooking, laundry, and then in the Chicago area, air sealing and insulation, right? I was talking to a colleague out in California about water heaters, and they were like, "Well, we'll just put it in the garage; it'll be fine." In LA, that's probably okay to put your water
Mm-hmm.
heater in the garage. In Chicago, not so much when it's negative 15 degrees outside. And so
Right.
we have to deal with certain things in our climate that, you're not going to deal with in California or in Florida or other parts of the country. It's very regionalized, right? There are certain things that we can all do, but there are certain ways that we have to accommodate our climate here in the Midwest that you might not have to do elsewhere, and vice versa. In more humid climates, more temperate climates, different things you're going to do.
That makes sense. Where I live, I'm not in LA Basin, so it's crazy. I'm only 60 miles from the city, but the climate difference is pretty intense.
Oh
So
yeah.
where I am, it's 100, in the summertime, but it can be down to 20, 30 in the wintertime as
Oh,
our
wow.
lowest low. So it can be pretty intense, and I noticed that I have to consistently change my water heater settings per the season. So for the summertime, it doesn't have to be up as high. For the wintertime, it has to be up way higher just to keep up with our hot water demands. And so it's interesting how that hasn't been accounted for previously, like having a hot water heater out in the garage. It shouldn't be a normal thing in climates like where I live, and especially in Chicago where you have would you say negative 15, something crazy?
Right, right. Yeah, we have the
Yeah.
the worst weather in the country, right? So,
Uh,
there's a couple weeks in the summertime when it's beautiful here, but don't come to Chicago in January or February. You will not enjoy it at all. Your question about, becoming a dad, and I
yeah.
feel like in my corporate career, I feel like I became a parent at maybe the worst possible time in my career. And I say that because I was starting to take off and do more advertising work. And because of that, I was traveling. And
Yeah.
so I'm in the Midwest and I'm traveling to Paramount Studios to shoot commercials, which was an amazing experience. But I was essentially gone for a month of the year
Yeah.
away. And I had, a new baby at home. And it was, again, probably the worst possible time as a parent to be doing that. And it really, I think that experience helped me refocus what did I wanted to do in my career. I was
Hmm.
like, this is great, but I want to be home. I don't want to miss this time with them.
Right, right. Yeah, that time is precious, especially, I feel like when my baby was an actual baby. I still call him my baby, and I feel like I will call him my baby when he's a
They'll always
teenager.
be, right?
Yeah. But it seemed like he was a different child every month during the infancy stage. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
who is he going to be now? Now he's starting to develop these skills, and he's got this little tiny personality trait starting to blossom. I can only imagine what that was like for you to be traveling and then come home to essentially a new child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, who
I
is
mean,
this
and
kid?
ultimately, maybe the positive side of it is they're so happy to see you when you return,
Mm.
right? You'll
Yeah.
never feel more love than like when you walk in after having been gone for a while and they're like, oh, hey, I remember you,
Yeah.
which is amazing. But then you're also like, I wish I was here. But yeah, I think, it's so cliche. We say like, treasure the time because it goes so quickly. But with now two high schoolers,
Hmm.
it's so true, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you were traveling a lot when your firstborn, or both of your
Yeah.
kids?
So I guess my daughter would have been 2 and my son would have been born
Oh my
when kind of
gosh.
all the things started to hit to like, hey, you need to go out here and you need to be, traveling quite a bit.
Yeah, that's so challenging. What did childcare look like during that time? Was it just your partner taking care of the kids, or?
I mean, so my wife worked full time. So I mean, obviously, or not, maybe not obviously, but like she took her time that she had for maternity leave. She's a teacher, and I feel like most teachers' children are born in April or May. I don't know, teachers that are watching, because they're planners, right? If you've met a teacher, my wife is, the most organized person I know. always planning things out. And it's like, well, if we have the baby in April, then I only have to take, a month off of school, but I'll get the whole summer off. And then I'll get some extra time for maternity, planning the whole thing out, right? How can we maximize the maternity leave that's offered?
Yeah.
So our daughter was born in March, our son was born in April. But yeah, thankfully, as a teacher, she did have that flexibility to be home for the summer, but it wasn't helpful that I wasn't around, right?
Yeah.
And then going back to school, she went right back to work in the fall. And then it becomes a daycare situation, right? And I think, unfortunately, the cost of daycare just keeps going up and up and up, and kind of finding the right one. And, do they need to be learning Latin at, 3 months old or something like that, because we want to prepare them for their, graduate degree. And it's just crazy, kind of the gymnastics that we go through mentally to prepare our kids.
Oh my goodness. I am currently in this limbo of how I want my kid to be schooled. It's like weighing out all these different options. I'm at the point where I'm seriously considering homeschooling because I feel like I have the most, and this is probably like a me issue, but I have like the most control. Like I know he's safe. I know that he's learning things that are actually helpful in this world. But then it's like, will he lose out on the richness of outside schooling? So I don't know. I'm
Right.
just so torn.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small town, so I didn't have a whole lot of options in that
Yeah.
way. And so it's a really different experience for me as a parent as well. My high school graduating class was under 100 people. And,
Wow.
my son graduated 8th grade with over 200 people, right? So all of those junior highs coming together, they'll have, roughly 1,000 kids in their class, and they're one of the smaller suburban high schools. And navigating that is such a different experience for them than anything that I had to do in the small town. Coming down to like sports and arts and music, in a small town, everybody did everything, because if you didn't have enough people for the team or enough people in the band. And so there were a lot of opportunities and crossover. I feel like here in the suburbs and, in the larger cities, it's like, oh, if you didn't start that program at 5 years old, yeah, you're never going to make the team, because, they've been doing it nonstop, which I call it sports industrial complex, right? In terms of like all the things they have to go through, and yet they can't be kids, right? So, yeah.
Right, right. I think about that too, because I want to make sure that my kid is building memories as a child. He gets to just be a child, not have to act like a mini adult. At the same time, of course, like I want to prep him to be a capable person in this world and be able to manage himself, clean up after himself, and be able to face
They clean up
difficulties.
after themselves? I'm waiting for that.
You know what? I found kind of figured out a little hack with him.
Okay.
I don't know if this is being a business person or something, but I call it the art of leverage. So if he wants to, I don't know, play with his blocks, but he has a pile of cars in the middle of the living room, I'll say, okay, you can play with your blocks. First, you put away your cars. First, put away your cars, then you can play with the blocks. It's the first then soundbite. And that seems to be helping because he knows like, oh, okay, well, I can't do this thing. Mom won't let me if I don't clean up first. And now I'm like implementing that with everything. So it's like end of bath time. He's ready to get out of the bathtub. I'm like, okay, cool. Put your bath toys away back into your basket first.
Yeah. No, that's
I don't know.
fantastic.
Yeah, we'll see if it sticks. If you have any tips, I am open because yeah, what is it like raising a teenager, by the way, in 2025? Like,
Oh my gosh. I mean, they're so different. So my daughter is 16, my son is 14, and they could not be more different people. And which is amazing, right? And I think the ultimate thing is that they're not me, they're not my wife, right? We're trying to shape and mold them into like, oh, these are the things we like, and they're like, we don't like those things, we want to do this. I'm like, what? I thought everybody liked that, because my wife and I have very similar tastes, right? We're married, we get along, we have all these things, and it's like, wait, you want to do that? Like, we never did that. What are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, the things that they have to navigate, and again, the size of the school and the scope of like the ideas and things that they have to plan out, so much different than what I grew up. Luckily, my wife grew up in the suburbs in a larger school, so I can kind of look at her and be like, is this what's supposed to happen? But yeah, as kids, I mean, I think the biggest thing is they have a really strong friend group between both of them. And I think having that support network at their own age, right? They'll listen to their parents and hopefully we're in their ear, but we're not there all the time anymore, right? So
Mhm.
hopefully they're making good choices. And I think that a lot to do with the kids that they're hanging out with.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I was listening to a bit about the blue zones across the world. Have you heard about the blue
Oh
zones?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and so the
Like
blue
the folks
zones.
that live to like the longest age. Yeah, one's in Italy.
Exactly, exactly. Yes. And yeah, so the blue zones focus on these places around the planet where people tend to live the longest, and they dive into why that might be. And one of the factors is that social connection. So it makes sense to set your kids up for success by helping them learn how to protect and nourish and build those relationships. Especially as a teenager, that's the age when they start to dive into that part of their lives.
Well, and I feel like, especially around here, everything is so compartmentalized in terms of you are the sports kid, you only hang out with that group, or you are the band or choir art person, you only hang out. Again, like that was a different experience for me because in a small town, I played sports, I was in the band, I was in the choir, like everybody did everything. And yeah, we had like a smaller subset of people, but like I was kind of friends with everybody. And so I think that narrowing it down to like, well, why don't you go talk? Oh, well, I can't talk to them or they're in this different group. So just kind of breaking through some of that, which I know has probably always existed, but it's definitely a different experience from, small town.
Yeah. No, I get that too because I had a similar experience in high school. I was a part of multiple groups.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you look through the yearbook and I'm in these different group photos for like, the choir, there's cheer, there is all kinds of different stuff. But I say that to say I went into high school with the intention of breaking boundaries for myself. I never wanted to be boxed
Yeah.
in. And I feel like that has served me throughout my career because I'm not going to let anybody tell me what I can and can't do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's something that I really hope that my kid can hopefully learn for himself too. I don't want him to feel boxed in by anybody, anything. And I can see that. I can see how you're doing that with the electric home company. You're saying, okay, everybody is using these gas appliances. First, tell us why using gas appliances is not a good idea for our future and how you are breaking that box.
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of reasons, right? I look at purely the environmental side.
Mhm.
Anytime we're burning something, right? We had an air quality alert here in Chicago today. We had one yesterday, and these are
Mm.
from Canadian wildfires, right? We're not facing wildfires as directly as folks in California or other parts of the country, but the air blows, right? It's going to keep going. So as these things happen, it's going to affect all of us on the planet. So
Mhm.
anytime we can stop burning anything, whether it's in our cars or in our homes or elsewhere, we're going to be improved. I think the big thing that folks don't think about in their homes is indoor air quality overall. So if I gave you a glass of water that was dirty, you wouldn't drink it. If
Right.
I gave you some fruit that was rotten, you wouldn't eat it. But we spend 80 to 90% of our lives indoors, and we really don't know what we're breathing. And so if you don't see it, you're not going to measure it, you're not going to think about it. So the biggest piece with combustion and fossil fuels is indoor air quality. There are many studies out there that even when your gas range is off, it's likely leaking benzene and other chemicals into your home, even if it's not on. And then if you are using it and you forget to put the range hood on, or you don't have a very powerful range hood, you might as well be cooking over a campfire in your kitchen, right? All of
Oh,
that stuff is coming into your house. So if you're not ventilating it properly, you're breathing all of that in, your kids are breathing all of it in. I don't want to be too doom and gloom. Google these things, but asthma conditions in children increase if you have gas appliances in your home, right? It's
yeah.
these are fumes and chemicals coming in from the air conditioning, heating, and cooling HVAC systems. We have a lot of natural gas infrastructure, and people are just used to that. So the challenge that I face is education and awareness that there's a different way to do things. Over the course of the last 10 years, technology has really improved. And so what I've seen is HVAC companies and contractors that have been in business for 20, 30, 40 years are very hesitant to the new technology because when they were learning the technology, it wasn't going to work in Chicago. The technology wasn't there to work in a sub-zero climate. If you're in Georgia or Texas or all of these other places that have been using heat pumps for years and years, it's fine. They know what's going on. They've been using it, but their temperatures are not dropping below zero on a regular basis like they are here in Chicago. And so it just takes an extra level of planning to get there. But yeah, so ultimately, from a safety and health perspective, those are the big reasons to remove gas from your home. But also from a comfort perspective, a lot of people just are used to, oh, I've got a cold room in my house and I just wear a sweater or grab a blanket on the couch because it's always cold in this corner. Or, yeah, we don't use that room in the summer because it just gets too hot up there. And people just deal with it, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's the way the house is. We can't do anything about it. It's
Yeah.
like, well, no, you can do something about it, right? It's like if your house were your body and you're like, my arm is always sore, you'd probably go to a doctor and figure out what's going on with your arm. You wouldn't just kind of put a sling on and be like, well, it just hurts in February. So, but that's kind of how we treat our homes. And, when I think about heat pumps and heat pump HVAC, these are really the most comfortable type of equipment that you can own because it runs low and slow. You want it to constantly give you that same temperature throughout your house. And it has flexibility. If you put in an addition or you have a room that's hot or cold, you can put in a ductless system that will help temper the air in that space. You can't do that with a gas furnace or your typical air conditioner that's running through ducts without thousands upon thousands of dollars of expense.
Right.
One of the challenges or questions I get from folks is, well, if we electrify our homes, how is the grid going to handle that? And ultimately, yes, the grid needs to be updated both from electrical side and infrastructure beyond. We need to do that whether we electrify or not.
Yeah.
But so many homes, at least in our area, are still using electric baseboard heating, which is basically like a toaster oven on your wall. And it's 100% efficient because as much as you plug in, that's how much heat you get out. But a heat pump system is 200, 300, maybe 400% more efficient. So if we changed out all of those electric baseboard heating for heat pumps, we would actually reduce the load on the grid.
Interesting. That makes sense. Also, something about having a toaster oven in my walls, just maybe this is being Californian, but I instantly think fire and it scares me.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems sketchy. But if it's working,
Makes a
maybe
toast,
this.
maybe not for your house.
Right. Yeah. I'll go the heat pump strategy instead. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds better. Now, how would this tie into solar? Do you offer support with solar services too, or
Absolutely.
yeah?
So folks with solar are really one of my target clients because I think there's been a great push for solar energy, right? I think if you can put solar on your roof and you can afford it and you've got a good spot for it, you should absolutely get solar panels, whether you're leasing it or buying it. The challenge with solar panels don't keep you warm at night. They don't make your house more comfortable, right? If your
Right.
kids go outside and they're cold, you don't tell them to put solar panels on their head. You tell them to put a coat on. And so essentially with our homes, we've put all these solar panels on, but we really haven't fixed what's inside the house, right? So solar panels don't reduce the amount of energy you use. They just offset that energy. And so, if I look at an energy efficiency pyramid for a house, solar panels are at the top of that pyramid. I want to make sure ahead of time that people are aware of what we can do, that you're looking at insulation and air sealing, right? Put that coat on your house first, that you're looking at your appliances, right? If I'm cooking over a gas stove all this time, how can I change that to an induction cooktop? If I'm using a gas dryer for my laundry, change out these appliances, which while expensive are way cheaper than solar panels. So if I've got, $20,000, $30,000 and I want to be more, energy efficient and more environmentally friendly, yeah, I can spend that all on solar panels, or I can do a whole bunch other things that will actually reduce the amount of energy I use and make the inside of my house more comfortable. And then when everything's electric, that's when we add solar to it, because now everything that in my house that is electric can now be powered by the solar panels.
Ah,
And
that's
so you could
brilliant.
potentially have, a net zero situation where you're not paying for power for that appliance because your solar panels are providing that.
Right. Oh man. I currently live in a solar powered home, I would say. I mean, I work with the grid. The grid helps to fill in any blank areas that our solar panels can't help us with. But every time I turn on my gas range or I have to adjust the stupid water heater that is gas
We
powered.
should check out because you really shouldn't have to do that. So let's talk more about that after.
No, definitely, definitely. Yeah, every time I turn on those appliances or I think about those appliances, I'm like, man, we are spending money and finite fossil fuel
Right.
on these appliances unnecessarily when the solar could be taking care of that for us.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know for my this is a little bit of like a side note, but my mom is currently going through menopause, and so she has the hot flashes. Her AC, I swear, it's like 50 degrees. She keeps it so cold in
Right.
that house. But the solar panels have been able to help offset all of that cost.
Right.
Now,
Right.
and they're netting positive, right? The solar is generating more power than they're expending. Same with our living situation here in my household. And so if we had those appliances, it'd be a perfect net zero. We wouldn't be
Yeah.
spending anything on gas anymore. And of course, just the thought of I didn't know about all of the icky indoor air pollution that's going on from all of the
Yeah.
gas
Yeah. I mean, one
appliances.
of the biggest things I recommend to folks is get an indoor air quality monitor because
Oh,
again, you don't think about it. You can't see it. So you don't
yeah.
necessarily know it's there. But if anybody in the family has allergies or asthma already, like indoor air quality is really important. You're
Mm.
filtering that. And then, a lot of folks, if you're waking up after 8 hours of sleep and you're still tired or you're having headaches throughout the day, you might have too much carbon dioxide in your house because we've sealed ourselves up in these boxes. And if they're not properly ventilated, we could actually have too much CO2 in our house.
Oh,
Hopefully, not dangerous levels, but if you're getting headaches in your house, that's a potential cause of that. And so,
wow.
whatever your favorite purchasing platform might be, look for an indoor air quality monitor. You can get some, for as little as $50, up to $300, depending on how much information you want. It can be. I even have one now that it's part of my smoke detector. So my smoke detector also has a carbon monoxide detector, but they added indoor air quality sensors in the smoke detector. And I
Whoa.
can pull it up on my phone and see what these levels are. Because, of course, right? It's sensing all these other things. Why not just put it in there?
That is brilliant. So where would you recommend sticking the monitor?
Yeah. So if you have one, I would put it in your bedroom
Mm,
because see what you're breathing in overnight, right? That's the one room that you're probably spending more time in throughout
yeah.
the day because you're sleeping there for hopefully 6, 7, 8 hours,
Yeah.
whereas you're moving around everywhere else and you're probably closing the door to your bedroom. So the
Right.
ventilation in that room is even tighter. And, if your CO2 levels are above 1500 or in the 2000 range, that's really going to affect your health and really going to affect your sleep quality.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so I can no longer continue blaming my toddler for my lack of sleep and headaches throughout the day. It's probably
right,
my
right.
gas stove.
I know everyone's going to freak out. Like, what am I breathing in? What should I do? Do I need to open a window?
Yeah, it's freaky. I'm actually like looking at my closed
Yeah,
window and I want to open it right now. I'm
yeah,
a little
yeah.
scared.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that we've put all this HVAC equipment in our house to keep us comfortable from a temperature perspective, but your HVAC system doesn't typically tell you what your indoor air quality is, right?
Right.
If there's wildfires outside and you have a ventilation system, does it know to turn it off because the
Right.
particulate matter is high? So I have a system
Right.
called an energy recovery ventilator. I actually have one that's a conditioning energy recovery ventilator, and it has sensors built into it. So it brings fresh air in and expels stale air out. And, I have seasonal allergies. I once went to an allergist who told me I was born on the wrong planet. I said, that's not helpful. Like, what am I supposed to do about that? Because I
Right.
was allergic to like all the trees and plants, which I love and do all this
Oh,
thing. And as we're building the home, we were looking at mechanical ventilation. And so these recovery ventilators bring in fresh air and expel stale air, but ours monitors the CO2 level in our house. So even if that number gets high, it knows to ventilate the house. It monitors volatile chemicals in the house and will automatically ventilate. And then their newer model of this system has a particulate matter sensor on it. And if it senses that the air outside is worse than the air inside, it won't ventilate, right? So if you're, in wildfire areas, it will know, okay, your air isn't the greatest inside, but it's actually worse outside. So we're just going to recirculate it and kind of scrub it through. It's things that we didn't have to think about or worry about maybe 20 years ago, or maybe we should have been.
Right.
The fact that they're in there, I saw a gentleman was like, oh yeah, my car has that sensor in it as well. And his car,
What?
when the particulates level got higher from outdoor air, his car wouldn't bring in outdoor air.
What? That is so cool.
Yeah.
And now, a quick message from our sponsor. Looking for a smarter, more secure way to manage and protect construction or remodel funds? At BuildSafe Escrow, they offer simplified escrow and draw services tailored specifically for the construction industry, ensuring your funds are protected every step of the way. As a trusted neutral third party, they release funds only when agreed upon milestones are met, providing transparency, security, and peace of mind for everyone involved. Whether you're building from the ground up or renovating a single room, BuildSafe Escrow ensures every project moves forward with confidence and clarity. BuildSafe Escrow milestone payments, transparent processes, trusted results. Visit buildsafeescrow.com today and learn why milestone-based payments and escrow are the future of construction. Thank you for staying with us, and back to the show. So, zooming out, what has been your biggest takeaway or blessing, right, from being able to work for yourself as a dad? How do you see those two affecting each other? Aside from being able to attend school events and be present for your kids, what are some other benefits for being able to work for yourself?
I mean, I think ultimately the stress level or the anxiety, like if
Yeah.
I'm not doing something
Yeah.
right now for my business, like that's on me. But every
Mhm.
time when I'm working in the corporate environment, I'm like, oh, did I get back from lunch, in enough time? Or did I do enough work today? And then do I have time to go to these different things? Like it was personal pressure more than anything else of like, am I putting in, a good enough day's work for my employer so that I can progress and, work up the ladder and do these things? And I'm like, at the end of the day, did it really help me? Maybe not. And then what did I sacrifice on the family side because I had that thought process? Now, as an entrepreneur, yeah, I'm spending probably more time working, but in a much more positive environment for myself. And then being able to say, oh, there's a baseball game. We're going to go do that baseball game. Like I'm going to go and I'm going to participate and, be present
Yeah.
when maybe in the past I was thinking more like I'm here, but I'm still on my phone, making sure that everything's fine. And it's like, as an entrepreneur, I know everything's fine because I'm the boss, right? Will that change as I grow and get more employees? Potentially. But I think just having that lower anxiety and stress level of being an entrepreneur, which maybe sounds counterintuitive as an entrepreneur because there's a lot more things to worry about. But I think the anxiety and stress level is lower for me as a dad, as a father, because I know that I have that time and that flexibility to be present, right? Because I've got, maybe 4 more years with them at home to do what they're doing and, go to all these concerts and sporting events and whatever it might be.
Yeah, make all these memories. And it is also important to talk about the flip side as well. So there are worries as an entrepreneur. What are some things that have come up for you and how have you been navigating those?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as a new business owner, as a startup, it's a couple of different things, right? There isn't a dedicated paycheck coming like it would in corporate America in terms of, oh, this is when I get paid every time. And so kind of understanding financially. But I think just the different perspective of small business versus corporate, I joined the local Chamber of Commerce, which, shout out to the Northbrook Chamber of Commerce, is fantastic, but it's a
Yeah.
totally different experience than corporate America, right? We're talking about the mom and pop stores, which now I'm a member of the mom and pop, doing these things. And I think the ability for folks to connect with each other and to want to lift everybody up, like that exists in some parts of corporate, but I feel like it's also like, I don't want to lift you up too far because then you'll
Mhm.
excel where I won't. Whereas this is
Right.
like, your business is completely different than mine. So I'm happy to trade ideas and comments and customers when it
Right.
makes sense. So that's been a positive, but just, I think the challenge is the shift in my mindset, right? Having
Mhm.
spent 20 years in corporate America to be like, oh, this is a different group of people and they have a different priority that I need to understand more. And I kind of grew up around it. Like my mom and dad were both entrepreneurs. My mom was a realtor. My dad was an appraiser and an insurance salesperson. So like they were part of the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary and all these things. So kind of followed that. I just didn't do it professionally for 25 years.
Yeah, yeah, there's a bit of a gap and that's okay. I always feel like it's important to flush out whatever it is that we want to try, right? So for you, you tried the corporate America life and it seemed like something that you wanted in the beginning and eventually over time you got to understand like that wasn't quite your gig, right? As of right now, it's not quite your gig. Maybe you'll get back into it in the future. Who
Well, and,
knows?
and to tie it into like parenting, ultimately about 10 years ago or so, when we moved into the house, I really wanted to make a shift in, what I started in my career and what I, ultimately went into. And at that time, the questions I was asking myself were, do I want to become an entrepreneur right now? Can I do these things? And honestly, like there was a lot more risk when my kids
Mhm.
were 3 and 5 in
Mhm.
making a career shift and like the security that that corporate job and the insurance and all the things provided. And so,
Right.
lucky enough, I was able to pivot internally within my career, but being a parent at the time prevented me to a certain extent from becoming an entrepreneur 12 years
Yeah.
ago
Yeah.
because I needed or wanted that security
Yeah.
from, again, that typical paycheck and insurance and, dedicated vacation time, et cetera.
Yeah, no, that completely resonates. I started being an entrepreneur previous to becoming a mom, and I feel like my risk appetite was so much higher before I became a mother.
Yeah.
Now I'm so much more mindful of the risks that we're taking, and on one side, that's a really good thing because the risks that I do take now are more calculated and they have a more solid approach. But on the flip side, it's scary. It's a lot scarier to be an entrepreneur as a parent, especially with a little guy. But that comes with the territory, right? And
Yeah.
an understanding like if you're going to become an entrepreneur, you are taking a big risk. I mean, I won't say big. It depends on how calculated you are and how much you've padded yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a very real thing. Now you mentioned becoming more aware of finances. Can you shed a little bit of light on what that has looked like for you? Like how has that changed the way that you handle your money now that you don't have a steady paycheck?
I think just the security of knowing like, oh, when I check my bank account on this particular day, that the check is in there, right? And
Hmm.
it's like
Right.
understanding like, oh, we've got enough, money to take that vacation or whatever it might be. And now it's like, oh, the vacations that we were going to do, are we going to be able to do that? There's not a dedicated amount of vacation days per se, right?
Hmm.
So if
Right.
I'm on vacation, then I'm not working, right? So
Right. Right.
versus getting paid for your vacation. But
Right.
yeah, I think just the stability of understanding more so, and
Hmm.
then as I'm getting clients, it becomes more, when are these things hitting? They're still hitting at high or low times during the year versus a constant steady stream, right? As soon as people start to turn on their air conditioners or their furnaces, depending on what time of the year it is, that's when the phone calls are, right?
Right.
And what I'm trying to do with my business is also change that cyclical nature or the times that those happen because people do need to plan ahead, right? So if
Hmm.
it's January 5th in Chicago and your furnace breaks and it's 5 degrees outside, you're probably not going to electrify because you just want whatever furnace is on the truck as soon as possible because it's cold outside. And
Right.
you don't have time to think about all the calculations and what needs to be done. So I need to get in front of people sooner to help them build that plan. Recently, a client, we've been talking for a while, and unfortunately, her water heater died over the weekend. And we'd been talking about things, but we hadn't really built out a plan. And she's like, I need hot water. And
Yeah.
now she's locked in for 15 to 20 years with her gas appliance because we just weren't able to get a plan in place
Mhm.
in time to meet her needs. And, that's the situation that a lot of homeowners are in. 80 to 90% of the times we change our water heater or our furnace are because they died. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, that's a very stressful period of time as a homeowner to be like,
Mhm.
oh, what do I have to do? And then, from a contractor perspective, they want to do it quickly for you and make sure you're happy, and they're not going to pitch you a more environmentally friendly option at that time. So,
Right.
I think part of that is, again, just raising awareness that these things exist.
Mhm.
What I'm trying to understand is a lot of the folks in my field and the area that are talking about home electrification and building electrification, they're all men. They're all just
Mhm.
a bunch of, middle-aged white dudes like me talking about this. And, because it's either because it's techie or whatever it has to be, I want to get more moms and more women engaged in thinking about air
Mhm.
quality in your homes. My wife jokes with me a lot. It's like, normal people don't think this way like you do. And I'm like, oh, you mean you're not like checking your air quality all the time and like wondering about your water heater? Um, or conversely, thinking about like cooking is a very emotional experience, right? We've
Yeah.
been inundated with ads that we should be cooking with gas for over 50 plus years. And so we have a
Right.
very emotional experience with our cooktop. And
Yeah.
if I tell you, well, we're going to change that out for an induction cooktop, you're going to say, well, over my dead body, are you taking my gas range? Right? Because we have this experience and we love it. And like our granite countertops that we installed, having, this 6, 8 burner gas range is really a status symbol, right? Not to mention, the utility of it. And now
Yeah.
you want to change it into a different thing. And, I think
Mhm.
the challenge too there is when I talk about electricity and electrification, particularly on the cooktop, people think, the old coil electric stove, which
Mhm.
is garbage, right? I mean, it works, but it's not like I don't want to recommend anybody get an electric coil stove, but an induction cooktop is using electricity, but it's using electricity to create a magnetic field. And so I don't know if you've ever cooked on induction. It's just as responsive as gas. It has no off gassing because it's electric, and
Right.
you can wipe it down because it's a glass surface, just like you would an electric cooktop. So it's
Love
easier to
that.
clean,
Yeah.
it works faster, and it works just as quality as gas. And a lot of high-end restaurants are switching to induction cooking because it's also safer for their employees. It's cooler. You're not heating your whole kitchen or your whole
Right.
house with this fire because it
Right.
literally heats the pan directly. I have a friend who, he's a realtor and he often takes people through these electric homes, and he'll put a $20 bill on top of the induction cooktop, and then he'll boil water on top of the $20 bill to highlight that it's not cooking the surface, it's only heating the pan. It really kind of gets the point across that this is a much safer experience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, yeah, parents out there listening, I want to get more folks involved in indoor air quality and thinking about these behind the scenes of your home. One of the things I consider myself an interior designer, right? I'm looking behind the walls. What are we
Yeah.
putting in there? What are we putting in the mechanical room that's ultimately going to help your overall interior experience?
Right. I love that. So it sounds like for you, you're facing a cyclical market challenge, right? People get cold, they pick up the phone, by that point it's too late. So for you, you want to plan ahead. What what efforts are you doing in order to get ahead of the cycle? I know you're less than a year, so you haven't had a chance to experience a full cycle yet. But so
Right.
far, what are your ideas for marketing and sales in order to get
Yeah,
ahead?
I mean, the biggest piece that I did, so having started in advertising and communications in my career and
Mhm.
having been on stage since I was 5 years old, I was the youngest child, so I had to get some attention somehow. So they put me up on the stage. I started a YouTube channel. So I'm the host
Amazing.
of the Electric Home Show on YouTube, where I document not only my own projects, but homeowners that have done this in their own homes. So I've done 100-year-old homes that have gone all electric in the
Wow.
Chicago area, in central Illinois, in the city as well. It's funny, I did a video on my induction cooktop at my own home, and my wife's like, I have to be in the video because no one's going to believe you because you're not the cook. So she's like doing on my electric home show video because she's like, no, I actually use it. It works because I did have to convince her, right? She was that person who was like, I want a gas range. I want this. And I literally bought her, a, small single induction burner, which you can get,
Mhm.
at IKEA or Amazon or wherever. And
Yeah.
so if you're thinking about induction, go out and buy that $50 to $100 single burner and try it out and try to
Yeah.
boil some water and
Mm.
race yourself against your gas cooktop boiling the same amount of water. And I guarantee
Oh,
you the cooktop will be faster
oh,
because it works instantly. But yeah, so I put together the YouTube channel, the Electric Home Show, which is great, but also, okay, I'm producing videos, but then I'm also doing the actual work.
right.
And then I had a friend over this past week. He's like, "You're in my Yahoo News feed." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's in Texas. And so Yahoo News had covered one of my heat pump videos. They wrote an article about it. They featured my video and like, okay, I'm now on the internet. And so I'm reaching out like locally through social media and promoting my channel that way. But I wasn't expecting someone from Texas. I actually had someone from California call me as well. And they're like, "Can you help me with this?" I'm like, "I'm happy to talk to you, but like I'm in Chicago."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So your service
Yeah.
area, just to clarify, are you only serving Chicago or Illinois or
So physically I'm doing northern Illinois, Chicago area physically where I can go to your home. I do have an
Mm-mm.
opportunity to do virtual consultations. And so folks can book a virtual consultation. Now, what I'll
Yeah.
say there is I'm very familiar with the incentives and the opportunities in Illinois. I'm happy to explore kind of what things are happening in Texas or California, but it'll be a much simpler process and hopefully I'll be able to connect you to somebody there to do the work. But right now it's a
Yeah.
focus on Illinois. I'd love to say, yeah, I can help you throughout the country, which I'm happy to talk to folks. And if they're
Yeah.
looking for a virtual consultation, I do have that offer on my website, electrichomecompany.com.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, gosh, Erin, you're doing the coolest stuff. Thank you so much for helping to improve the air quality and the overall living quality for people and especially for families, keeping our homes safer and just more efficient. So thank you so much for the work that you are doing. I'm excited to see the future of your business and how you're able to help so many more people because you're already off to this amazing start. Like this is going to be incredible
Yeah.
work.
No, thank you
Oh
so
my
much. It
goodness.
was a pleasure talking with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on Bringing Up Business. If you could, please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at bub.podcast. That's BUB.podcast. Finally, we'd love to get your feedback. If you have a comment or a guest idea, please let us know on our website, bringingupbusiness.com. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Say bye-bye. See you later.
Bye-bye, Shalala.
This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered business advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording and are subject to change without notice. The views and opinions of guests on this program are not necessarily those of Umari Digital and its affiliates, which together we refer to as Umari Digital. Umari Digital is not affiliated with guests or their business affiliates unless otherwise stated. Umari Digital does not guarantee the accuracy or the completeness of the data presented herein. This recording is for informational purposes only, and the information, data, analysis, or opinion it includes or their use should not be considered business, financial, or legal advice. Umari Digital shall not be responsible for any decisions, damages, or other losses resulting from or related to the information, data, analysis, or opinions or their use. All business decisions are subject to risk, including possible loss of capital. Individuals should seriously consider if a decision is suitable for them by referencing their own financial position. Thank you.